Good morning and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be canning some skinless boneless chicken breast in our pressure canner. I have cooked mine first because that's just the way I prefer it. I don't like the way cold packed chicken comes out. It comes out too much like boiled chicken. I don't like the texture. The only thing that I put on the chicken was a little salt and pepper and a little bit of poultry seasoning. That way you can still use it for a variety of dishes. You're not just limited to one thing. I'm using pint-sized jars because it's just my husband and myself, and I don't want to waste chicken by having too much at one serving. The jars have been sterilized, my countertop has been sanitized, my hands are washed, everything's clean and ready to go. Read your individual canner for your individual location to know how much water to put in your canner, how much pounds of pressure you need, and how long you need to cook it, because everyone's canner is different and everyone's location is different. And your jars. Some people say that you don't have to boil the jars. You can just use hot soapy water if you're going to use them in a pressure canner. My jars are new, so I did boil them today. I don't have a dishwasher. If you have a dishwasher, you can sterilize them in the dishwasher if you have a sanitizing cycle on there. I just feel better boiling my jars. Everyone's different. By all means, consult the websites, consult YouTube, look in your books, find out what works best for you. I prefer to boil mine. My lids and rings, I put them, after a good soapy wash, I put them in warm water and bring them to a simmer. Don't boil them because you can damage the ring around the top and then you won't get a good seal. So, that's what I've done so far. And I have some chicken broth. That is my own chicken broth that I'm going to put in the soup, if I can find my putter-inner. Or I'm going to put in the chicken. It's not soup. Some of this chicken may end up going in soup. I don't know. And you want about an inch of headspace at the top, and we'll check on that in just a minute. Like I said, this is my chicken broth. You can use store-bought chicken broth if you'd like, whatever you prefer. I like to use my own stuff. And that's jar number 1. And I'm probably going to fast forward through filling up the rest of these jars so you don't have to watch all that. Okay, this is just white vinegar. Store brand. First of all, my canner recommends that you put just about a tablespoon in the water. So I do that. I've never figured out why you're supposed to put it in the water. I'm not sure I agree with that, but it says to do it, so I will. So make sure that your cloth has a good bit of vinegar on it. Then you want to go around the lids of your jars just to make sure that they are clean, because if there's any grease or food on this lid, it's not going to seal properly. Maybe I'm weird. I like the smell of vinegar. It reminds me of making pickles with my aunt. You definitely want this to seal, to make sure that you have your lid surface very clean. And again, this is just plain white vinegar. I just use the store brand. And just make sure that there's no food or oils around there that might interrupt with your seal. Now, we are going to put our lids on. We're going to put our rings on just to finger tight. You don't want to over tighten them. Just finger tight. And I don't consider myself to be the least bit strong, so when mine are finger tight, they are definitely just finger tight. I wish they'd had more of these chicken breasts for me to get, because canning is not a quick and easy thing. It's very time consuming, so to do all this just for 6 jars may seem a bit much, but I'm doing it. Okay, now I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this. Let me get them in there first. I do have my rack on the bottom, because you don't want your jars directly touching the bottom of your canner. This is a new canner for me. I didn't realize that new ones do not come with 2 racks. They only come with 1. So had I had more jars, I would not be able to double stack them, because this doesn't come with enough of it. Now, I'm going to show you something that I'm about to do. I only have 6 jars, and this holds 7 pint jars at a time on the bottom rack. You don't really want to leave empty space in a canner. It can cause problems. So what I'm going to do is just fill up 2 jars. Yeah, I think I have room for 2 more. 2 jars with water, and put the lid on them just to have something to take up the space. And then of course I will just open them up and pour them out after everything's done. Again, these are just to take up the empty space in here, because it's not really good to have your canner not have all the jar space taken up. If you're water bathing, it's not that big of a deal, but with a pressure canner, that's not good. You don't want your jars to touch one another. You want to leave a little bit of space between the jars, and you don't want them touching the canner itself. You know, keep them not directly on the wall of the canner, and then you have a rack to keep them off the bottom of the canner. So that is one step down. This hood vent is causing me some trouble with this. I'm going to put it, ooh, that's heavy, on the burner. I have the burner on medium high, and what we have to do, trying to bring this over here where you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. We need to let this build up to 10 pounds of pressure, okay? But first, we have to make sure that there's no extra air in there and that it's steaming well. So we have to wait until this starts shooting up steam. And once it starts to do that, I'm going to set my little rooster timer for 10 minutes, because you want to give 10 minutes for that steam to come out. Make sure you don't have an excess buildup of air. Then we're going to put our weight on, let it come up to 10 pounds of pressure, and then it's going to go for 75 minutes. Okay, it's also super important to note before we get started that you cannot ever leave your pressure cooker, pressure canner unattended. You can't start it and then, oh, I'm going to go outside and do some gardening, or I'm going to go take a nap. You need to keep a constant eye on it, because your pressure needs to be regulated. You need to regulate it to make sure that it stays at the poundage that you need it to stay. You may need to turn it up, you may need to turn it down, but don't ever leave your pressure canner unattended. So while mine is going today, I'll be doing dishes, ironing, things like that that will keep me in this kitchen while it's going. So that's really important to know. Safety first. Okay, we've had our steady flow of steam for 10 minutes, so now we're going to put our weight on. And we should start to see our needle come up to pressure. We need it to rise on up to 10 pounds, and then we will begin, as it starts to get close to 10, then we'll start to turn the heat down just a little bit, because we don't want it to go over 10 and end up busting our jars. Okay, now it is getting pretty close to the amount of pounds worth of pressure that we need, so I have turned the burner down just a little bit because we don't want it to gather up too much pressure. Once it gets up to 10 pounds of pressure, then we'll set our timer for 75 minutes. And as you can see, I have a huge pile of laundry that needs to be ironed to keep me busy while I'm waiting on the canner timer, because you do not want to leave your pressure canner unattended. Okay, our chicken is all done. The thing is cooled down, the pressure's let off. We took the lid off, and now it's time to take the chicken out. And you see, it appears to be sealed, and there's lots of juice in there. Always put your jars on a towel or a cooling rack. Don't ever put them straight on the countertop, just for whatever reason it can cause them to bust. Okay, now we have to let these sit on the countertop without touching them for 24 hours, and then we can check the seal and make sure that they sealed up tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day. Our jars have sat overnight, so now we're going to take the rims off. Check the seal. You can kind of poke on the lid and make sure you don't hear a popping noise. You can even try to pick them up by the rim of the lid, and it should not come off. That means we've gotten a good seal. We have a storm front moving in today, so you can tell it's giving me a stop-trip head. That's the glory of chronic illness. Okay, they're all sealed. I'm going to wipe them down really good with a rag with a little bit of vinegar on it, just to get off anything that may have gotten on them from the canner. And then we're going to store them, and that's how easy it is to can chicken. See you next time.